Fantastic. Well, it's good for you to join us, both of us. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, no, good, thank you. And excited to talk about domain alignment today, in the 37th episode of Deliverability.TV. So maybe we'll jump straight in. So yeah, I mean, it'd be great to discuss what it is, any industry updates, why is it important? But let's just maybe we'll start at what it is. What is
Okay.
domain alignment?
I've prepared a slide for that. Should we start with that? Probably.
Hey, amazing. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so here we go. Yeah, in the end, what domain alignment is about, it's that the problem, or let's not say the problem, the challenge is that sending a communication, email communication, we have different from fields. And if you ask yourself, why do we have different from fields? Well, in the end, communication also in the past had different from fields. For example, if you imagine a letter, then you have a snail mail letter, then you have a from field outside the mail envelope already. But when you put a letter in it, you write again who you are on the top right. And last but not least, usually you sign the letter at the end of the letter with your signature. That means it's in the end also 3 times that you tell who you are, who's sending the message.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, in case it can be different persons being on the envelope or writing the letter or even signing the message. But the question is, does that actually make sense? In email, we have the same. We have the envelope information that's being communicated during the SMTP dialogue. That's part of the protocol. And later it's copied in the mail header and usually called something like return pass. And there it's the first time that you tell who you are. That's your address. Especially the domain part is important.
Oh, yes.
And the content part contains this from address. That's what we see here as 5322.From. And the signature finally is our DKIM. And that's the one that we see on the bottom. And that can be, again, a different domain. But the question is, it's about trust. And if someone else is signing your letter, the question is, does that actually make sense?
Well, it would look very strange, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and the question is, why is that such a common setup? I mean, there's not really a good reason for that. Technically, it's possible to have different domains, and at least some of the huge providers always sign with their own return pass domain. That means the technical sender says, here we are the mailbox provider, and just in the content you can tell who you actually are. But nowadays there's more and more requests from the industry. The mailbox providers are asking actually directly for having an aligned setup, because they want to know who sent the message actually. And if there's different people saying, yeah, that was me, no, that was me, no, that was me, it's not a clear picture for the domain, for the mailbox provider. That's why they say align it, and align it means use the same domain everywhere.
That makes complete sense to me. Could I just have a question? Could you go one slide back, please? Very good. So this is really easy for me to understand. Let's just say we're a campaign manager, email marketer. This kind of information, let's say it wouldn't be easy to retrieve. So are we saying that to know this for sure, we have to then analyze message headers? Is that the first step? I understand why it's set up, but for someone that doesn't, that's just new to learning about domain alignments, is the only way to check via the headers? I think that's one of the only ways, isn't it? And there's a few tools out there, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you if you're a marketing manager sending email and you don't know actually what domains you are using, sure, you could check your own mail header, but probably that's a bit technical, or you just ask your service provider if that's done correctly.
Okay,
yeah. Well,
no, that's good to know, because I suppose people are learning about this topic now. Some people, good to know why it is there, how to find it, and then yeah, it'd be great to understand. So why now? I suppose there's some updates that are happening in the industry. Maybe we'll go to your next slide.
Yeah, exactly. So in the past, technically, it was possible to have different domains in from and in the envelope from, and there's some other weird technical possibilities as well. Like you can also mention not only one from address, but more than one. That's historically because email was also used a lot in the university area, and sometimes when you create a document, there's different authors possible. So it's also possible to mention different froms. Doesn't make sense technically nowadays, but anyway.
Do you know one thing I noticed, Florian? Just sorry, another quick question. One thing I noticed, so this could be relevant for email marketers as well as B2C, but it could also be relevant to B2B. So what I've seen is, let's take Google Apps or G Suite, for example, or Office 365. Out of the box, there is no strict alignment. It's there is a default DKIM key, and it's actually it's unaligned. I think it's unaligned. It's either relaxed alignment or unaligned, and you have to actually take an extra step to make sure that it's strictly aligned. I just think that could be interesting for people understanding this. So it's not just B2C, it's actually B2B as well.
Yeah, and that's also what a lot of marketers struggle with when they say, okay, we have heard something about DKIM, it's a good thing, so let's do it. And they ask their service provider to sign DKIM, and they do it. And then you have a DKIM pass. But in the end, if this is signed with a different domain to your own domain, what does it tell you? Nothing. That doesn't help you. It only helps you that there is a signature below your document, but it doesn't mean anything that you can trust this person. Let me give you an example. If you, for example, if you want to fight phishing and you have a from domain, you're using paypal.com as a from domain, it's totally fine that a phisher is registering an own domain, no matter what domain, and signing DKIM correctly with his own domain, and still saying he's from PayPal. Can you trust PayPal now, just because there's a valid DKIM domain, DKIM signature? You can't, because it's a different domain. That's exactly why Mailbox provider said, okay, DKIM domain DKIM signature is fine, but it's only worth anything if it comes from the same domain that you use and from. Otherwise, it doesn't help us at all. And that's in the end why the industry is pushing now in this direction. We spoke a lot about that IP reputation will go away. Domain reputation is coming, but domain reputation can only come if you can trust that the domain is really the sending domain. And that can only happen if the alignment is given. And that's why there's few articles, for example, that's a postmaster page from a huge provider in Germany, and they explicitly mention that. They say, we want you to sign DKIM with the same domain as you use in the from domain. And this also applies for the MailFrom domain 5321, which is the envelope domain. There's also industry, not only for a specific ISP, only industry-wide, the requirement to do that, to speak about that, explaining the topic, and in the end, what everybody wants is, you want a DMARC record probably to fight phishing. You might also want to have BIMI to display your image in the inboxes, but BIMI requires DMARC, and DMARC requires alignment, and alignment.
I've got a question for you there.
Authentication.
This is really good. This is like an order of priority list for any sender. In terms of alignment, now, before we get to DMARC, so you've got SPF alignment and DKIM alignment. And for DMARC to pass, you do need at least one of those, SPF or DKIM, to be aligned. But if I understand correctly, my takeaway from this is there's a lot of ISPs enforcing now DKIM alignment. I'd still say SPF alignment is important. So that's the from and the envelope from the domains matching up as closely as possible. So I think that's also good to mention. So sometimes in an ideal world, it's hard to get both fully aligned. I can give you one example with Infusionsoft, also known as Keep. They do not allow for strict SPF alignment. However, you can strictly align DKIM, which therefore it can pass DMARC. But it will be interesting to know what they think about the new rulings and updates with the ISPs. Sorry, carry on. Go for it.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's completely correct. And for some mailbox providers, the DMARC requirements are not strict enough because they want both. They want an alignment of from and envelope, as well as from and DKIM domain. That's why some ISPs go even above the requirement of DMARC, and they say, no, if you want to deliver mass mail, bulk mail into our service, we require you to have both aligned. And in the end, it's possible. It should be possible. There's a general rule to use as less. So the less domains you use in your email, the better, because every additional domain has potentially an additional reputation. It's something external, and something external is always a bit suspicious. So best try to use as less domains as possible within your email, especially in the header fields, also in links and images, but especially in the headers. Yes, that should be the message.
Very interesting. Yep, makes perfect sense.
Should I close that presentation? We don't need it anymore, right?
No, we don't necessarily mean it, but I think on the topic of when you look at domain alignment, you predominantly think of headers. What you just touched upon there as well, I think, is an important point. Often you'll have senders with a huge amount of different domains from different places, like links, link tracking, reference links to other websites, which could be on a block list, for example, image hosting. Maybe they're not hosted on the sender domain, they're hosted on some CDN or some other network. And as you said, it's like a multiplier. Every time you involve more domains to an email, it then becomes, the filters are looking at these emails, and it becomes a multiplier of reputation. You're not just looking at the reputation of your sender anymore, you're looking at the content, you're looking at all of these references, and that can impact your email deliverability. So I think that's a really important point that you picked up on there.
Yes, that's yeah, exactly. So in the end, that's all about authentication or domain alignment that we should know. So key takeaways for senders are try to figure out how your setup looks like. Then set up DMARC. That's very important. Set up DMARC on your from domains, and then monitor these reports, because usually you not only use one tool or one provider to send emails. Sometimes you have a shop, you have a newsletter, you have a your normal working emails and so on. So there's different sources that you use for sending email, and you need to be sure that all of them are authenticated correctly, aligned correctly, so that DMARC is passing. Once it is, then you should activate the policy of reject, because only that is finally protecting you, that someone else can't abuse the domain anymore. And if all of this is done, then you can also, let's say, as a goodie, implement BIMI, and yeah, at least without the BMC certificate, it's free. Yeah, if you can also then go the step to activate a certificate for that. Yeah, but that's cause additional costs, which is probably not good for everybody. But at least the DMARC step should be done.
I learned yesterday, $1,500 for one certificate.
Really?
Now, apparently, yeah, there's two providers, and I know that if you buy, I think if you buy in bulk, you get a deal or something. But I also read yesterday that in particular with BIMI, that the mail client, the new Apple mail client, is looking to adopt BIMI. So that was kind of news on BIMI there, which would be interesting. But sorry, to go back to the topic matter, Florian, as you mentioned, domain alignment, I think understanding first what it is and why it's important. And as you mentioned, are you, I suppose the question to answer is, are you sending or using practices with strict domain alignment, relaxed, or unaligned? And depending on which one, then I think that's also a conversation to have. Then you can move on to DMARC.
Now you need to explain the difference between relaxed and strict alignment. Okay,
so strict alignment, really, quite simply, is like for like. So it's the same top level domain. For example, with the same from header at example.com or Deliverability.TV. So this here, the example on the screen is strict alignment. If, for example, you were using a subdomain, say news.deliverability.tv, it would be relaxed alignment. If you were using, as you mentioned before, I think one example, say you used inboxplacement.com instead of Deliverability.tv, that would be unaligned because it doesn't match up. So I think that's the three key differences. Effectively, what we're going for is strict alignment. In some situations, it's not possible, so it must be relaxed alignment. But what we want to avoid is unalignment.
Yes, and for some reasons, so for example, you can also see here in the DKIM signature, you can set a policy. So the policy is relaxed. Even if we do strict alignment here, we also allow relaxed alignment. In some cases, it makes sense because for technical reasons, there's something like a bounce dot in the return path to filter replies better. There is reasons for that, or especially if you're using an ESP, probably you don't want to give them access to your main domain, your Deliverability.TV, but just allow them access to a subdomain like newsletter.deliverability.tv, but still want to use the organizational domain Deliverability.TV in your from, then it's also fine to sign it with a subdomain. And it is fine because it means you also have access to that. It's the same domain structure, same domain owner. If you use, for example, news.deliverability.tv, means it's the same domain owner. If you use something like deliverability-news.tv, it's not the same owner, not necessarily. So don't do that. It's important.
There you go.
Stay within the same domain. That's what some people struggle with because they say it sounds so similar. Yes, that does, but from domain perspective, it's completely different.
Absolutely, and that's a great point that you make. I also think this domain alignment, it does throw into the air, like you've got marketers, usually, typically email deliverability comes as an afterthought. So you just want to set up a campaign and send it, right? And then you'd like to think that your email service provider is looking after this for you. That's one thing. So that's mainly B2C. But when you're looking at B2B, your own business emails, it's also important to make sure that you have this in place. And typically, a lot of senders don't know that they have this in place. That's from my experience. And what's more for that, these corporations naming Google and Office 365 they don't by default add in strict DKIM alignment. So I think this is definitely a good takeaway that I'm taking from this. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff.
All right. I mean, if there's questions on that, you can comment the video, I guess, and we can give you some advice, what to do, how to check it, how to make sure it works perfectly. And then, yeah, I guess this is a very important topic, and probably as a last information, that what happens if you don't? Maybe nothing for the moment. Maybe you will be abused in the future. Maybe you are already abused today. Latest beginning next year, I guess first ISPs will start, yeah, even maybe blocking your messages, or at least reducing the amount that they accept if they are unaligned. So it will become mandatory one day, sooner or later. So
Exactly.
best prepare now.
Well said. Prepare, be aware, otherwise you'll face circumstances that are unfair. No, raise awareness and be aware of what's going on. That's basically it. I get what you're saying, Florian. Don't want to be left behind, because before you know it, your results or the results of your clients or senders can diminish.
Yeah.
Thanks, Florian. That's one.
It's always the best part in deliverability. We can always say, do that. If you don't, possibly something will happen. And once it happens, we can say, here we go. We told you.
There you go. Told you so. All right, fantastic. Well, I think that's great for domain alignment. I think that's a wrap, and great explanations on screen. And yeah, as you mentioned, reach out to us if you have any questions about this topic. I think that this is quite important now, and we'll be building on this.
Yes.
Nice.
All right. Then.
Okay.
Have a good one, and yeah, speak soon.
Speak soon. Cheers, Florian. See you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.